you have to be able to say that I have this vision, this kind of vague idea of what's going to work. And actually, the details of how we're going to get from here to there can be vague. Sometimes the end state is very specific. Like you can really visualize in your mind, this is what the product looks like, and this is what the customers are going to say, and this is what I'm going to look like when I'm playing the Steve Jobs role on the big stage, and this is what the president will say when he calls me to say I really got to get my iPad, and whatever it is. Like we visualize those details extremely well. So that's the place I would start with the hypothesis. Is just, well, first let's write down what is it that we believe. A shocking number of entrepreneurs are kind of scared to really say it out loud. Because first of all, they might be embarrassed. People will be like, that'll never happen. You think so. Like sometimes we pretend that we don't have those aspirations. And sometimes we're afraid that our co-founders might have a different vision in mind and we're conflict avoidant. But I have learned the hard way in my career, that is a bad conflict to avoid. If you're a co-founder or working on different visions, you kind of need to know that, sooner rather than later. So I'm sure none of you have this problem, but you have a friend maybe whose co-founder isn't totally on the same wavelength, so you could mention to your friend, hey, maybe you guys should actually write some stuff down and see if you write the same thing down. I've done that as an intervention for friends of mine, who are in startups. It's put all the founders in separate rooms, lock the rooms. Now tell everybody, okay, write down what the startup is doing. What's the plan? What's the vision? And then compare the note cards and see if they wrote down even vaguely the same thing. Oftentimes you'd be really surprised what people, how closely you can work with someone and still not really be on the same page with them about what you're creating. So for the early stages, a vague sense of what is going to happen is perfectly fine. So classic thing is you have an entrepreneur who's like, I'm working on quantum teleportation, and everybody's going to want it, because who would want to commute to the office? And you're like, that sounds awesome to me. Great, perfect. That's an awesome hypothesis. I like the ludicrous and extremely overconfident hypotheses because they're easy to quantify. If it's true that every single person is going to love your product, it is also technically true, just as a matter of logical deduction, that 10 people will like your product. Right? It's just 10 people is a subset of everyone. And we don't have to target very effectively because everyone's part of everyone, so that's easy. So let's just go find the first 10 people we meet and ask them to buy our product and see what happens. So now we've translated this vague idea that we have this thing that everyone is going to like into a very specific problem of well, how many out of 10 people, given the chance to pre-order our product, will do it? Now, actually visualize teleportation. I use that example all the time because we were like, well, of course. So it's everyone thinks their product is as good as teleportation. It's not, but because teleportation is pretty awesome. But actually think it through. Imagine you actually went up to someone on the street. Would you like to be the very first person to beta test my teleportation device? You could imagine that somebody might say, why don't you call me back after everyone's using it, and then I'd be happy to take a look. So now, teleportation is the ultimate product where people are like, that is an all technical risk business. If you can figure out how to make teleportation work, you are set. But we've introduced a completely non-technical wrinkle into the problem, which is even if the product works perfectly and you solve all of the quantum physics problems involved in the paradoxes and everything, you're in sci-fi land, you still don't have any customers because people are like, I'm not getting a teleporter, you got to be nuts. So there needs to be a strategy to get us from here to there. So the vision is we have this end state goal, right? We think that everyone in the world is going to teleport to work instead of commuting. That's awesome. Then we have a strategy that says here are the specific steps that we have to go, to get from here to there. And we have to start by teleporting mice, or I don't even know. I have no idea what the business plan for teleportation will look like. But we find some other use case. We start there, and then we expand out to this segment. Every one of you has had to do this exercise, I assume, with your product.
It's a live demo you can do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So, the problem is solved.
Yeah, because it turns out the teleportation is an all software problem, so I'm uniquely equipped to solve it. So it's fine. Yeah. That strategy is the thing that tends to be wrong when people start to build their product. Even at the end state, there are all kinds of products that have incredible end states with no path to get there. The classic thing is a product that is really valuable once everybody's using it, but has no value if less than everybody is using it, and you can't have everybody start using it on the same day, and so you can't get from here to there. The key to kind of lean startup thinking is to say, well, let's make that strategy explicit, and then let's try to test the elements of the strategy to see which ones are true and which ones are not, and then when they're not, we use our most famous buzzword, we pivot. Which is a change in strategy without a change in vision. And this is the thing that people get wrong all the time. It's they think if I admit to an error, if my co-founder found out that my strategy is not completely perfect, that's the end of my company. Our morale will be destroyed and we'll quit and everything will go wrong. And so no one ever wants to admit that they made a mistake. But having the concept of the pivot in your vocabulary can say, look, we were trying to predict the future and that's hard. So yeah, it's hard. It's not that big a deal. We got this thing wrong. Let's try a different strategy, but we're going to stay true to that same vision. That's the idea in a nutshell.